Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Earlier today, I was on a Zoom call with a group of it was an industry construction industry group, and they're booking some speakers for later next year. And one of the things they have never touched on was the whole notion of networking. They've talked about people knocking doors and business practice stuff, time management, all those things, and networking was one thing that they really had never even thought about touching on. And they're concerned that the economy is going to slow down and they need to give their members, their clientele, something more to go on. And so that was struck their interest in me. Great guys, but one of them said, I got to be honest, for years, all I thought was networking was just kind of going out, having a beer and glad handing people. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's part of it. That's part of it. And you know what? If you do nothing else, that's great. But there's really so much more to it. And today I have on as a guest, Michael Foreman. He has been working with professionals for nearly a decade and has delivered countless presentations. He's the author of a book called Networking Unleashed, and he's passionate about helping professionals prepare for successful and rewarding careers through the people around them, networking. He loves speaking, but his favorite role, he's a dad and he's a husband. I don't know if it's that order. We won't tell your wife, right?
Right. Don't tell her.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Michael. I guess give us the journey. How did you get to this point? You got this book.
Thank you, Frank. Listen, it's great to be here. My journey really began when I was in the Air Force, and that was 100 years ago. So, I was in a situation where I was a certain rank, and I had to tell people older than I was, who were not as high of a rank, what to do. And you really had to do that with kid gloves because otherwise they'd get offended. But that began the whole journey. I've been an entrepreneur. I've owned pizzerias, restaurants. I've owned graphic design studios. I've also worked in the mortgage industry. I worked in the law industry as a sales director. So I got this notion of networking from like 8 different views.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, but it all boils down to the same type of networking. And honestly, since the pandemic, I think people lost their minds. They forgot how to network. They forgot how to communicate. And it's all very simple. For you and I, it's very simple, very common sense.
Yeah.
But for the 20-somethings or 30-somethings who is now out in the business world, they really lost touch and they don't know how to do it.
Well, it's you heard my earlier comments about the construction suppliers, the construction industry. Part of their concern, they're in Ohio. Ohio is kind of having a boom right now. I don't know about the rest of the country, but we've had a pretty good economy. And when you have a pretty good economy, things just move, right? When the mortgage rates were low and everybody was refinancing, it's easy to be a mortgage lender because people are calling. When it tightens up, that's when relationships come into play, and people who don't have those skills, they're going to be working at that pizzeria you were at or doing whatever else.
That's correct. It's amazing because my second to last workshop was in Ohio, and it was a metal roofing company.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm teaching them how to network efficiently and effectively so that they don't burn bridges, they don't do anything wrong, because the people out there, the clients, are few and far between. So they really have to network properly.
No, absolutely. The other day I came home. Oh, I feel like we're picking on the roofing industry, and we're not. But I came home and there was a card on the table from a roofing company. I'm like, oh, okay, somebody stopped by. My wife works from home. Somebody stopped by. I really didn't think anything of it. So we were sitting there having dinner, and there's a knock on the door, and I came to the door, and there is somebody there from the same roofing company, a different guy, handing me his card, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys are persistent. And my thinking in the
Hungry.
moment is this is not a relationship, right? I mean, he's just, hey, we're in the area. We figured we'd stop by and see if you needed anything. And it could have been it wasn't a horrible time for him to stop by, but it could have possibly been the worst possible time. And I'm just not interested in talking to somebody at that point.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between being a customer and a client.
Yeah.
Okay. Customers come and go. You buy something, you leave, and it's done. But building a client relationship, it's all about relationships. And the way that I describe having a client relationship, let's say you're in a grocery store and you see a customer. You wave to them, hi, how you doing? Hey, great, how you doing, Mike? And keep on going. A client relationship. Hey Frank, how you doing? How's your wife? How's your son? What's going on? He was in Little League. Oh, he got hurt. And a little bit more about it for about 5 minutes, and then you move on.
Yeah.
That's the relationship.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely. And that's where people tend to fall down with respect to the whole networking game, if you will, or just doing it at all. They think you go right for the sale, right for the close.
That's correct.
So what prompted you to write the book, Networking Unleashed?
Well, that came from the last couple of years when I saw that people really either forgot how to network and communicate,
Mm-hmm.
or they weren't doing it, or they were lazy. And they would
Mm,
say, well, they're just going to call me, or they'll just meet with me, or they did it very, very nonchalant. And I felt that if I wrote it in a book and I
mm-hmm.
gave them from soup to nuts, from
Yep.
the beginning to the end, including the follow up, because the follow up is probably more important than the initial meeting.
Yeah.
And if you don't do the follow up, if you do it incorrectly, that's worse. If you don't do it at all, that's even worse. If you don't, so you have to do it just right. And I came out with a system where if you just send an email as a thank you or for meeting somebody, you get about a 20% return. And if you go through it the way I suggest, then I up that 20% to about 85%.
Okay. You want to share that on here?
Sure, sure,
I don't
sure.
want you to go through the whole book. People buy the book.
No,
Networking
no,
Unleashed.
I'll tell you. It's very just I've done entire breakout sessions on just follow up. Okay, so let's say at the end of the evening, you have 15 business cards. Now, on the back of the business card, you write the date, the name of the function, and something you spoke about. And I went through all that in the book. But when you go home, the first thing you do is write a thank you email. Frank, I met you at such and such place, at such time. I want to thank you for meeting me. Have a great night, Michael. That's all I wrote. And I sent it. Now, the following morning, what do? I write a handwritten thank you note.
I knew you were going there. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
You write that thank you note and you write almost the same thing.
Yep.
Hey Frank, how you doing? Met me such date, such a time, whatever. I'd be very interested in meeting with you, Michael. And that's all I put. No time, no date, no nothing. Because that 20% now has been raised to about a 50%, 60% return rate. Positive or negative, that's all I'm looking for, but I'm
Yeah.
looking for some type of response. Now, in about 3 days, 3 or 4 days, give them time to receive that thank you note. Because now remember, you sent that thank you note to their place of business. So now they received it. Now, when was the last time you received something like that at your place of business? That usually prompts a response. But even if you don't, here's the kicker: you're right before the weekend, let's say. Hey Frank, how you doing? This is Mike. Remember me? I met you at such place, such time. We spoke about your son Johnny in Little League. Remember? I just looked at my schedule. Next Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm free. How about you? And sign it. And then you wait for the weekend, Monday or Tuesday, and you say, "Oh, I saw Tuesday and Wednesday may not be good for you. Is there a better date for you?" And you do it. And so now we've just increased your response from about 60% to about 75%.
Yep.
And really, unless these people are totally dead or inefficient, they're going to respond to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
if they don't, it's what I call the Midwest no.
yeah,
It's just
well,
so what?
but you don't throw their information out.
No,
You,
no,
t-
no.
you, you
Yeah,
you take it, you put into a drip campaign in your CRM, and don't forget about it, but you put it in that spot.
yeah. No, I love the advice. I don't do as many networking events here locally because as through the pandemic, my business has really gone more national in scope. But when I was doing events here, I would gather the cards and I would drive a mile down the road, depending where it was at, pull over, grab a Coke, and I would sit there with my handwritten notes. I wasn't doing the emails ahead of time, but it's like, you know what?
Perfect.
Uh, I need to decompress from being at the event because that does take a lot of energy to be there and be on. And just, and I use a Sharpie. I,
Well, yes. Listen, I don't go anywhere without the thank you notes. In my
right.
briefcase,
Yep.
my thank you notes. Usually, when I'm leaving the event, I already have that thank you note pre-written, and I hand it to the event coordinator or person. So I'm handing to them immediately, and so that leaves me on a very good note with the
Great.
event planner.
Yeah. What if the person's not a candidate for you? How do you handle that?
Well, it's if you actually go through the meeting, what I always suggest is you don't say what you do right away.
Right.
You immediately ask them what they do, have them talk about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. Let them talk about themselves and say, something, I like what you do and I like how you do it. How can I be the best referral source for you? So you're looking to give rather than receive. And whether they're good for you or not can always be a good referral source for that person. And that person will always remember you for being a referral.
No, I think that's great advice. Before we hit record, we were talking about Bob Berg, but Bob Berg 101. I've known Bob a number of years. Um, and um, those are things he talks about. I love what you're saying. I love the book. In my mind, nothing that you share, nothing I share is like it's not rocket science, right? I mean, it's not like, okay, here's nanophysics or whatever. These things are as old as time. I have a friend who says it's common sense, just not common practice.
That's exactly right. I can't say it better myself because I always say it's common sense, but I
Right.
never say not common practice. So that's a perfect way to segue to put that together.
Now, in your book, you talk about attending networking events, and the title of this particular chapter is "Assume the role of host, not guest." Can you elaborate
That's
on
right.
that for us?
Very easy, very easy. The when I say go to a networking event, you can be at a meetup for a chamber of commerce.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's usually a smaller meeting, but usually everybody knows one another. But
Yep.
every once in a while, somebody will walk in and go to the wall. And that's where you take it upon yourself to walk up and say, "Hey, I'm Michael. What's your name? Oh, you're Joe. What do you do for a living? Oh, that's right. You know something? That table over there, that's filled with people that would love to speak with you about what you do. So come on, let's go talk to him. So you walk him over. Now, what does that do? That elevates you in his eyes. It elevates you like, well, look at Michael. He brought me over, So whether he's a client for you or not, doesn't make a difference. Okay. You have just brought yourself up in his eyes, and you'll always be remembered like that.
Yeah, no, I think
That's
that's
what I
great.
call being the host, not the guest.
Yeah, no, I think that's, people will say, excuse me, people will say to me, geez, I have nothing to give. Well, if you have a network, you have something to give. You can start
Yes.
making introductions. Even if you're coming into an event, if we stop and think about it, you're coming into an event cold and you don't know anybody. All you need to do is get beyond that first introduction, that first I met somebody, and then all of a sudden you have, an arrow in your quiver that you can unleash.
I always suggest using humor,
Mm,
using humor when you walk up. Now, that is for those people that are humorous.
sure.
But because if you don't have that in your body, don't do it. Don't do it because listen, everybody knows when somebody's pushing out humor and like, I'm almost funny.
Yeah,
You don't want that. But you're right. That's putting one more quiver in your bag, and you can use humor intertwined with storytelling
yeah,
because people will remember a story more than they would remember a fact.
yeah. Well, it certainly depends upon the setting, what's going on. You're down in Georgia. You don't get snow, or at least you don't go
Hey,
anywhere if you
listen,
get snow.
I come from New York.
Okay, you get snow.
Okay.
You get snow. You
Yeah. So
understand
I
snow.
understand. I
Yeah,
understand. Look, I've held networking events in the middle of snowstorms.
yeah,
So I know what it's like to have
yeah,
three people show up.
yeah. No, I get it. I went to an event. I shared this story, and of course it's snowing. We don't get a ton of snow in Columbus, but we did. And you come walking in and you see people, kind of like scared cats, right? Driving out there. And that was just kind of the impetus to kick off a conversation. It's like, oh man, what do you think about the snow? Oh, I love it. I'm a skier. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about skiing, and that was the
Yeah,
whole
that's it.
conversation. And just finding that little thing. Okay, I
Yep,
know
that
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 person. They used to be on ski patrol. I'm going to introduce you to them.
right, right, right.
Doesn't matter that the businesses don't match up. None of that matters. It'll all sort itself out. Uh,
That's all part of the rapport building when you first meet somebody.
yeah,
And building the rapport, the more you build it, the more their wall of confidence, their wall of trust, their wall comes down. And your goal is to have their wall come down because there's a mantra in the book. If they know you, if they like you, if they trust you, then they'll do business with you.
yeah,
And know you and like you, it's pretty simple because look, we're likable guys.
yeah,
But that trust factor, once you get that trust factor, then they'll do business with you.
yeah. In the book, you talk about find a higher purpose. Um, share with us about that.
Well, your higher purpose is to, if you go to an event or a meeting or something, your only thought should be forgiving, not receiving.
Love
If
it.
you say,
Love it.
okay, how can I help this person? How can I help that person? What can I do to help the? What can I do for you? Because that's a higher purpose. That's not thinking about me at all, only thinking about you. Because eventually, what goes around does come around.
Yeah, that's great advice. I I I call it the cloak of invincibility. If you're going into something like that and you're there to help people, nobody's
Yeah,
gonna nobody's gonna dismiss you. Oh my God,
right,
Michael's here. This is great. Every time I run into the guy, I get a great introduction. Come on
right.
over.
That's something, anything, something.
Yeah.
But if you are remembered like that, then you're one step ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. Let's shift gears here a little bit. I want you to have the opportunity to talk about your business, what you're doing, what you've got going on. I know we got the book here, Networking Unleashed. Networking Unleashed, Mastering the Art of Networking. Discover the 7-step path to effective networking designed to help everyone achieve their networking goals. Michael Foreman. But you got other things going on, other things you do. You had talked about a workshop, but I'll shut up and let you pitch. Let us know.
Okay. Well, listen, so if you go to my website, michaelaforeman.com, okay, that'll give you everything. It'll give you the rundown. It'll give you the Speakers Bureau that I'm a part of, my book. On there is also a downloadable PDF about the book. It's the main bits of the book, because you don't have to buy the book then. Just main books. If you want to read the rest of the book, then yes, buy it. It's not very expensive. But this will at least give you a starting point of what to do and where to do and how to do it. Now, I do all that. I get invited for keynote speeches, breakout sessions, usually more breakout sessions than keynote speeches. But I do a great deal of breakout sessions and workshops. I go to the company and I say, okay, who's your salespeople? Oh, these people. Well, who's your support salespeople? Who are your people that answer the phones? Those are all the people that should be in this workshop. And just for instance, I went to this metal roofing company in Ohio, and they invited the warehouse workers. And the best question that I received was from a warehouse worker, because he was interested in how to speak with the clients on a certain level and what to do and how to follow up. Because once he gives the whatever to the client, he forgets about them. So, well, don't forget about them. Follow up. Go to the person that you sent them to. Say, look, did you handle that properly? Okay. Whether you send an email, have them give you a call, whatever, but it's showing you give that once extra step, and that client will always remember your company. Okay. So, and plus I do one-on-one coaching and 1-on-5-10 coaching. So I usually go to a company, and once, usually every other week, I will take 5 or 10 people and I'll coach them for 2 or 3 months and get them going. So I have a well-rounded business. I actually started doing virtual workshops because that I can do that a little bit easier. I can't have my personal touch that you can't get that feeling. The one thing, when you network in person, you feel the vibe of the other person. You feel that, and then you get to see everything else that's going on. You lose all that when you do it virtually.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd say it. But anyway, michaelaforeman.com, my Networking Unleashed book is there. The different podcasts I was on is there. The different talks is there. But most importantly, my contact form. You fill out the contact form. I will call you back within 24 hours. And I'll speak to you what you need, and I'll hopefully be able to take care of you.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll get the URL, michaelaforeman.com, in the show notes. I really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. This has been a very good podcast.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.